Hey everyone, this is Mani here, and super excited to kick off 2025 with uh, our webinar series. And today I'm pleased to bring on and introduce to you all growth marketing leader Pratibha Jain. She's here with me live for this session. Hi Pratibha, how are you?
Hey, Manny, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. So Pratibha, I know we have a very interesting topic for everybody today. We're going to be talking about the top five trends in demand generation for 2025. Obviously, there's a lot of, call it chatter, a lot of hype even in some ways, and a lot of discussion in the market all around AI and how AI is completely transforming go-to-market and demand generation. But before we get into all of that, I think it'd be great if you could quickly give an introduction to yourself and your background, and so we get a sense of the perspective we might be hearing from you today.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on this webinar, Money. It's great to be here.
Mhm.
Quick introduction about myself. I've led demand generation and growth marketing at B2B companies in the San Francisco Bay Area for almost 18 or 19 years now.
Mhm.
I've worked at companies from Series A all the way to Series F and some large public companies as well, and across many different industries. Some of them have been data security, networking, Kubernetes, developer tools, HR tech, and a few others. So excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, no, that's what also got me super excited, Pratibha, because I've met so many folks, right, who are growth leaders, revenue leaders. But what I really liked about hopefully what we learned from you is the perspective that you bring working with earlier stage startups to kind of companies in the million, 2 million, 5 million ARR all the way to 20, 30, 50 million ARR. But you've also worked in large enterprises. So you have this breadth of experience, which I found quite interesting, which hopefully, so the folks listening will find useful regardless of stage of company, stage of business, where they're at. So what I will do, Pratibha, next is I'll quickly put up just, one quick slide, an agenda slide, if you will, that, will set the stage for everybody. So let me share my screen here real quick, and I'll bring that up. And then, so the top five trends, let's go back up to the top. Let's bring it up. So the topic for today is uh, is top five trends in demand generation in 2025 as we kick off this year. And we already did the introduction, so let me skip next to the next slide here, Pratibha. Maybe if you can touch upon, there are five things we've listed here. Um, let, what do you think is how do you see it? Let me say frame a big question for you first, which is how do you see demand generation? How has it changed as you look back at the last several years to what's big, what's new in 2025, top level for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm seeing is, on the one hand, buyers are really demanding personalized experiences, right? Value driven experiences.
Hmm.
On the other hand, demand generation executives, and I've certainly been there myself, they're being asked to do more and more with less resources,
Right.
right? So, we often lack the resources that we need to meet our targets. And targets actually have been going up over the years, while budgets and team sizes they're decreasing or at best staying constant, right? So I'm really excited to talk today about how demand generation is evolving and how the advancements in technology can actually help demand gen leaders meet or exceed their goals.
Right, absolutely. And so we will certainly, get into, you know, number of different areas. Um, Now, I think you've called out five things. So let me kind of
Yeah,
start with maybe the first of them, and I'll put
sure.
up just that the first of those five key areas that you think demand gen is changing in a big way. So let me bring that up here real quick. And so, can you speak to this, Pratibha? Kind of call it your, you know, just sharing my screen again. Talk about this one first, please, which is why did you pick this as one of the key themes for 2025?
Right. So what you're referring to is the AI powered personalization that we are seeing, right?
That's correct.
So personalization actually is not really new, right? We've been talking about this for a long, long time,
Hmm.
but we haven't been able to effectively execute it at scale.
Right.
So most of the companies that I've been at, right, whether they were early stage startups or even the large public companies I've been at, I've mostly used the personalization strategy for one-to-one account outreach, right?
Hmm.
Or perhaps for a vertical market and creating a strategy, focused on that particular vertical,
Hmm.
which has a lot of targeted content and messaging and so on.
Hmm.
But generally, the bottleneck has been the capacity of the team. And what I mean by that is capacity of the content team to create enough content that I would need, right, in the demand gen campaigns,
Hmm.
or even on my own team at large public companies. I've had one email marketing manager on my team.
Hmm.
And so they are trying to do everything, right? And there isn't enough time to actually create all the emails for nurture campaigns, for event outreach, for follow-ups, etc. And so we end up just using personalization to the very highest value accounts. But with the advent of I think all that is already changing and it's going to change a lot more as we go forward.
Hmm.
We can now use AI tools to create content at scale. We can write messaging that's relevant to the pain points of the target accounts, of the personas within those accounts. We can even create offers and test them out in real time and optimize the campaigns right based on that. So what is actually going to change therefore is we'll actually now be able to send the right message to the right audience at the right time, right? Something we talk about in demand gen marketing all the time, but I feel like we haven't quite delivered on that yet.
Okay.
So I'll pause there for a moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think a lot of people are certainly talking about AI powered personalization. There is certainly a lot happening in terms of content and content production, content marketing, and how that's changing with AI. I'll do a quick follow up question for you, which is I wanted to ask you this real quick, Pratima, which is can you speak a little bit to personalization as it relates to what marketing cares about versus personalization as it relates to what sales people, whether it's SDRs, BDRs, sales teams, care about? Um,
Yeah. So I'll start with the sales side of the house first, right? So when sales is reaching out to a prospect, they're actually, getting a lot of inputs about that individual, right? Demographics, firmographics, and so on, and creating that very targeted one-to-one message. In
mm,
marketing, generally, what we've done, let's say I'm interested in going further into a particular vertical market, we create a series of emails, right? Nurture campaigns that is specific to that particular vertical market. So it is, relevant to them, of course.
mhm,
But in marketing, I think what we'll now be able to do more easily is that we can actually, based on that vertical market, based on the different personas that are relevant within that space,
mhm,
create even better messaging and send emails for each of those personas, not just for that industry, right? With that right messaging and the right content that is relevant to them where they are, and also based on where they are in their journey with us.
correct.
So I would say, like, we already use AI personalization in many ways, like chatbots and predictive lead scoring and, dynamic content delivery and so forth on the marketing side. I
Hmm.
think there are other ways as well, which we can talk about further in the conversation, that I see AI playing a role on the demand gen and growth marketing side.
Right.
So the key takeaway I would say is that even if you're new to AI driven personalization, it's fine to start small, right? Start testing with maybe just your emails, or the landing pages, etc., and then scale up from there.
Right. So, by the way, Pratibha, we are starting to see some questions come in. There's one question that's come in around, what are some tools that you might have seen, we've seen for personalization, be it on the marketing side, on the sales side. So, why don't we do this? Rather than take on all these questions, we'll try to batch them and maybe hit them towards the end, right after we get through these five key themes that I know we want to cover today. So, hope the folks who are listening or watching, wouldn't mind bearing a little bit, with us on this one. So, so I think so that was the first one, which was all around AI based and AI driven and AI powered personalization at scale. So, let me quickly now switch over to the next topic I know that we want to cover. So, let me just bring that up real quick. So, just switching over to topic number two. So, this one here, Pratibha, this is the one you have called out next. Can you speak to this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, intent data is such a powerful tool and an asset for demand generation because it offers so many insights right into the buyer's behavior. I've used a lot of different intent signals in my career as a demand gen leader, and I'll share some of those. I found that those signals actually translate really well, regardless of the size of company or even the industry the company is in. So the first one is behavioral signals, right? These are the folks who come to the company's website and they fill out a form for a demo or a gated piece of content, or they're visiting specific pages on your website and so forth. So what that shows, of course, is buyer intent and also where they are in their journey with us. So if somebody's filling out a demo request form, obviously they have some knowledge, right, of what the company does, how it can potentially solve their pain point, and so on. So really, really powerful, and I think the most important of all the signals that I've found to be relevant for me.
Okay.
The second one I'll say is company level triggers.
Okay.
So these are changes like new leadership at a company. And at a prior company where my audience was CIOs, CTOs, when I saw that there was a new leadership, crafting a really thoughtful message on how my company's technology could help, right, in their role, help them succeed.
Mhm.
Or if there are updates to a company's technology stack, right, that may signal readiness for certain solutions.
Understood.
The third one I'll say is going beyond what's already happening within your company and going to some of the external signals. So these are signals from the external ecosystem, like keyword trends. Or if you're speaking to a prospect and you see changes, like they've raised a round of funding, or they've launched a new product, or signed up with a new partner, and so on, they may be indicators of readiness for your company's product.
Got it.
So I have found these to be really relevant and useful. Of course, they could be different from, for your company, for your industry, and so on. So my recommendation would be experiment with different intent signals and see which ones are the most relevant for your industry, and then start to integrate them in your marketing outreach.
Yeah. And have you seen any specific challenges in terms of all these different kind of buying signals, intent signals, and what are those challenges in terms of actually operationalizing them, Pratibha?
Yeah, I'll say the biggest one is there are so many signals, prioritizing which ones are relevant and just using those, right? Otherwise, it would be too confusing and we probably wouldn't have useful data.
Mhm.
The other is whenever you use an intent platform, right, to make sure that technology integrates with the other existing, marketing stack that you have.
Got it.
The third I'd say is the adoption. Like if it's great that you know that these signals work, you now have a platform, but people aren't trained to use it, or they don't know how, what use cases are most relevant. So really getting them up to
Mm.
speed on that, I think, is really important, and that can help get more out of the value that we're seeing from the intent signals.
Yeah, no, no, very much. I think you're absolutely correct. I've certainly seen a lot of revenue leaders, marketing leaders talk about prioritizing between all these intent signals being one challenge. For sales folks, I mean, um, we've seen some struggles for them in terms of trying to make sense of company level intent signals, saying, okay, what am I supposed to make of this? Who exactly do I need
Mhm.
to chase? Who do I need to follow up with? Especially if it's a large enterprise and they don't know, who to pursue. So it makes a big difference from what we've seen. Being able to hone in and narrow down and get down to the person level. And as you know, with a lot of the new technologies that are coming in, new data sources that are coming in, it's now possible to go beyond company level to person level buying signals and intent signals. And there's also a lot of newer tools emerging that are bringing together literally this entire gamut of buying signals and intent signals and helping you make sense of them and operationalize them. So I think that's a great pick. I personally think, in terms of what you called out as a big trend for this year. Yeah. So I know we've covered two of them. So we talked about AI-based personalization at scale. We talked about smarter, targeting with better buying signals, intent signals. Let's now talk about topic number three of the five for today. So I'm going to bring that up now, Pratibha, and here we go. So let me do the same thing. I'm going to share my screen here and bring the topic up for folks to be able to digest and be able to, and we can speak to it. So moving on to topic number three. What do you like about this one, Pratibha?
So content is certainly very near and dear to my heart, and teams that I've worked at will recognize if they're listening in that I believe content is king for a demand gen leader.
Okay.
Because without high quality content and relevant content, right, and lots of different formats of content, because not everybody wants to listen to a webinar or read an ebook, right? Different people consume content differently, so we need those videos and infographics and written content and so on. But without that, all those different pieces of content, as a demand gen leader, I can't effectively run email marketing campaigns or ABX plays or content syndication programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot create those journeys by segment, by use case, by vertical market. So what I'm seeing happening is that in addition to these traditional content formats, what is emerging is this new or relatively new content format, which is very interactive. Um, and what the interactive content really helps do is to grab the attention of the prospect, encourages their participation because they got to interact with that tool or that content piece, and it shows them the value immediately. Um, and some formats of those, and you might be familiar, you might have seen some of those already. They're like interactive quizzes, there are online assessments, there are interactive infographics, there are online ROI calculators, right? There's a lot that is coming up, which actually is much more immersive than just giving them a static, white paper to read.
It's interesting you brought this up because, one of the things we recently tested along these lines was, we have this new solution offering. We call it real-time intent leads, which is to present, new kinds of leads that demand gen marketers can work with, which is off-site leads on topics of interest. One of the things we were thinking about was the demand marketers will want to know very quickly for, hey, here's a set of topics I care about. How many leads do you guys even have that I could put to use? So we came up with this intent leads estimator tool that's live literally on our website on a product page, so that a demand marketer can literally go in, type a few topics of interest, and it'll quickly generate an email and send back to them. Here's a list of topics that you wanted, and here's the number of leads that are available. So is it fair to say that's the kind of interactive engagement experience maybe you're thinking about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I can give you an example from another B2B SaaS company I'd worked at,
Yeah.
where our key audience was, developers and directors, senior directors of engineering, and CIOs and CTOs, right, who are obviously the decision makers. So when we introduced an online ROI calculator, the prospect would, engage with it. They would enter some, data points in there. It took them probably a couple of minutes, right? Very similar to like the tool that you're talking about on the Konzu side. And within a couple of minutes, they got an output that actually showed how much developer time they could save if they were to use our platform.
Got it.
And we found that most of these prospects who interacted with this ROI tool went on and asked for a demo. And after they saw the demo, they moved on to a 30-day free trial. And most of those free trial users actually signed up for our products. So it wasn't just a oh, it's a great tool. You put it on the company's website and you get some interaction, right? It actually was the best source of leads coming in, but also converting into closed won revenue. So I'd be really interested in hearing, obviously, and seeing like how the tool that you have on the website is performing. But I've found in my experience that these tools are actually really engaging, and they're much more provide a lot more information and in-depth information, right, that I can use right in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thank you for calling this one out. I would agree with you. There's a lot changing in terms of content formats, engagement. How much people are willing to engage. Certainly, we're seeing all kind of very interesting short form content popping up on LinkedIn lately, isn't it?
That is true.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so let me then bring us to the next topic. I know we've talked about AI-based personalization at scale. We've talked about buying signals and intent data and smarter targeting. Now we've talked about interactive content. I'm sure folks listening are probably curious about what you've called out as number four. So let's kind of go there next. So with that, let me share my screen again and bring up our demand gen trend number four for this 2025. And so here we go. So how would you elaborate on this, Pratibha?
Definitely. So I'll start by saying that it's important to really understand which channels our prospects are in, right? Are they on social media? If they're on social media, which channels are the most relevant, right? Are they coming to our website? Are they downloading content there? Are they signing up for our webinars, right? What are they doing? Which channels are actually working? Um, and then the next step would be to use all of the marketing channels to really build a cohesive story. And why is that relevant? Because from a prospect's perspective, they don't know, and quite frankly, they couldn't care that there are four different or six different people, right, on the marketing team, each one who's running a different channel, right? It's what the prospect is seeing come through to them through the paid ads and social media and emails on the company side and so forth, right? So they're seeing one company, and is that actually telling a cohesive story is the question. So I would say, start by making sure that we are using the right marketing channels and then using the data from those channels to make sure that we show up as a cohesive brand.
And anything you're seeing, Pratibha, in terms of trends for this year, in terms of uh, channels that are working better? How would you kind of stack rank or order some channels that people should pay more attention to as we go into 2025?
Yeah, it's a really big question, I'll say, because that really does depend on where the company is, right? If it's a young startup versus a later stage company, how established, right, their vertical market fit and their, ICP and all of that is. But regardless, there are so many different folks that make that buying decision that I think the channels should be called out relevant to each of those audiences, right? So, for example, a hands-on user will probably come to the website a lot more. They will download written content. They will attend webinars. They'll pay attention to emails, right? Nurture emails work really well. Um, Mid-level folks, right? Directors, senior directors at most companies would want to see, and the engineers too, the hands-on folks too, would like to see a demo, right, when they understand a little bit more about the product, etc. And then decision makers really want at the end of the day to understand what is the ROI, right? So they're higher level uh, content pieces like an ROI analysis or peer-to-peer conversations or like in-person meetups or roundtables and all that are actually very influential in getting them over the finish line. So the short answer is a little bit of it depends, but because there's so much complexity, right? With the industry you're in, the personas you're working with, right? The product offering you have. But I think a lot of these channels, again, like I said, not everybody wants to read something. Some people like videos or like infographics and so on. I think there's a place for a lot of these different marketing channels and strategies to come together.
Right, and I know that when we've spoken in the past, Pratibha, I know you called out, for example, at earlier stage companies, say at a million ARR, a couple of million ARR, and then they're trying to scale up. You know, if I recall you saying that, hey, maybe you're not investing a lot of paid tactics yet, but you certainly need to make sure you've got your SEO covered. You've got to have a good website, and then you've got to have. I think you talked about small events and making sure live events are certainly one thing that they invest in. They may not invest as exhibitors, but they certainly need to be present, right, in some of the key events and or do their own small local events.
Absolutely great memory. And yes, I do believe that like a website, right? It is the face of the company. Folks are coming to the website, they're consuming information, they're learning about our company's product or service.
Mhm.
And that needs to be really clearly articulating our value proposition, as well as give them a way to engage, right? Give them a way to give us their information so we can then send them relevant, invites to perhaps the event we'll be at or the webinar we're hosting and so on.
Mhm.
So yes, organic search, website, conversion rate, right? Getting the right folks to the website and then converting them,
Mhm.
super, super important.
Right.
Paid media, I think it all depends on how much budget there is, and again, what stage the company's at. But early on, and if the budgets are really, really small, I think there are other ways to get better ROI from that marketing spend.
Correct. And then, of course, then you have the outbound campaigns that need to kick in once you have, the ability to understand some of the folks coming in, some of the leads you're kind of surfacing, warm leads, such as some of the newer tech allows you to do. But then you need to do the outbound campaign. So you're going to have your sales emails and your LinkedIn-based outreach by your sales team, and then, of course, your dials and calls.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now we've covered four key topics in terms of trend that you talked about in terms of demand gen in 2025. Let me now switch over and then bring up topic number five. And I'm sure this is a really interesting one that you'll have quite a bit to kind of bring up and hopefully share some insights on. So let me bring that up right here. Um, one second, please. Coming right up. And what is your how do you describe what this particular trend is all about, Pratibha?
Sure. So account-based strategy is also actually not anything new, right? We've been talking about this for the past many years.
Hmm.
And if you think about the B2B enterprise companies and how they make a decision to buy, we know that there's a buying committee, right? It's not just one individual or two folks who are making that buying decision. So multi-threading has become really, really important to engage the multiple stakeholders within the target account we're going after.
Hmm.
So ABX, I think what's changing here is that we have now more granular data with which to segment the different buying groups within the account and create specific messaging and content that is relevant for them, right? So it actually resonates with them. So some examples of how you can make it more targeted is actually creating email messaging that is very relevant to that particular persona within the buying group. Ads again that are specific to that particular user within the account, creating a webinar program that's relevant again to that account if it's a one-to-one account and a really high value account, or it could be for the vertical market. um, Taking a written content and tweaking it. You don't have to rewrite it from scratch, but tweaking it and making it relevant enough for that particular audience, right? Creating videos, creating microsites or landing pages. So what this approach helps us do is to create more meaningful engagements with all of the different audiences within the account that will actually help drive pipeline and revenue. And I've used this approach very effectively, the last couple of companies where I've led account-based strategy, and I was able to use ABX not just for opportunity creation, but also for opportunity acceleration.
Hmm. Got it. So that there's a lot there. I think you're talking about account-based strategies, account-based GTM, and so on. As the focus on the entire buying group, right? There's some of the key themes around what you've called out as the fifth key uh, topic or area, right, that you see as a trend in 2025. Um, Now, across the board, I wanted to now kind of start to bring together, right, thematically, um, couple of things. One is for every demand gen leader, every revenue leader going into an organization, can you speak real quick, just be try to wrap and sum things up in terms of all the investments that are going to be made? Uh, what would leadership be looking for? What really is the demand gen leader, such as yourself, going to be held accountable for? Uh, can you talk about maybe a few key things that matter at the end of the day for leadership in the company?
Right. So demand generation works obviously very, very closely with a lot of different stakeholders, right? Sales, SDRs, product marketing, customer marketing, and all the other go-to-market groups. First and foremost, as a demand gen leader, I'm held accountable to how much did I contribute to pipeline for the company, right? So what did all of those marketing activities help deliver to meet the goals for that month, that quarter? The second piece is obviously as a demand gen leader, I have oversight of a certain amount of budget that I use for whether it's events or account-based programs or paid spend or my website development and so forth. So collectively, what is the ROI of all of those marketing programs
Mm,
that I am working on?
mhm,
And then the third thing is I'm expected to forecast the demand for, generally we start out at the end of the previous year, we're forecasting for the next year. And then every quarter we're doing the forecast, refreshing it based on things that might change, right? Either within the company or even external factors. And then we're looking at it even more granularly. So forecasting demand is, I would say, the third really, really important part of a demand gen leader's function.
understood. Understood. So now we've kind of summed it up. Let me now pose this question, which is there's so much talk about AI, right? I know we touched upon that as one of the five
Yeah.
things. Can you speak more broadly about uh, any of your prior experiences around, specifically around, as we kind of wrap this up, uh, where have you seen AI coming into play? Uh, or where are you seeing it coming into play as you look at different
Mhm.
areas, different aspects of demand generation today, based on your prior experience? And where do you see AI making an impact, like just more of an impact in different parts of demand gen?
Yeah, so I'll say AI is actually, although we called it out as one of the five, pillars we talked about today,
Hmm.
it actually is pervasive across everything, right? It's relevant to account-based strategies, relevant to content creation, right? It's relevant to the omni-channel marketing approach and so forth. So I think I might have mentioned some of these channels before where I've, seen AI used, which is chatbots, right? And they've been around for a very long time. There is predictive lead scoring that I've done using, AI platforms. Dynamic content delivery has been part of many of the tools that actually deliver content to our prospects. So I think that's been in use for a while as well. Doing A/B testing for whether it's emails, landing pages, the website, right? That's something that we've also done for a while now. A couple of areas where I see that AI hasn't quite been used as much, where it would be really, really useful. The first one I'd say is predictive analytics. So, what I mean by that is using the historical performance data to predict the performance of the marketing spend in a channel, right? So, I know that if I have spent so much in the past on paid media, this is what I got out of it. But now, can I then use AI tools to say, here's my budget for next quarter or next month? Can you predict what I can expect to see, right? The return from that.
Okay.
Um, the second one I'll say is, I was just talking about forecasting being a really, really important part of the demand gen function. And so using AI to actually forecast, right, what the contribution would be for each channel. So yes, there's multi-touch attribution, but at the same time, we are looking at every channel and seeing like what if I spend X amount of dollars, right? And I get what will I get out of that spend in paid media versus account based versus another channel. So those are kind of the two areas that come to mind right now, which is predictive analytics and then forecasting.
Got it. Awesome. So I think then let's now that we've kind of covered the five key themes and five key trends for demand gen 2025, um, maybe we can take a couple of audience questions. One of them, like I said, just came in earlier, is tools for AI-based personalization, and and I know that there's certain that literally, I mean, this is my top level take on it, and I'm sure you can elaborate on this. Literally every piece of technology or tool in the current GTM marketing sales tech stack, they are all trying to, I'm sure, evolve around AI and see what changes they can make around AI. So in some sense, is it fair to say personalization is something a lot of these tools will try to tackle in their own way in terms of whatever is the scope of that particular tool? Like a marketing automation tool might try to do personalization of AI for marketing emails, as an example.
Um, I think you're right on, right? So there are lots of tools out there, and I think each of the parts of the tool stack that we're using will actually inherently build that AI capability, if you will, so
Mhm.
that they can offer that functionality at a deeper level, right? So there are lots of tools, whether it's account-based marketing platforms, whether it is tools, instead of going to specific tools, because obviously the choice of tool set could be different based on your specific need and what you're looking to get out of it. But there are lots of tools that can actually help both with the AI personalization as well as the intent side, because I think both are important, right? um, to find the right audience within your ICP, and then use AI to actually create those messages at scale or content at scale.
Absolutely, and certainly one of the newer tactic strategies we are starting to see on the sales side, for example, is taking a lot of the buying signal data, intent data, pumping it into certain newer tools that where the data can be nicely organized, and then you have you can take action on different pieces of data, and then you can have business logic applied, and then you can have personalization rules applied, where you can actually making you're doing a call out to like a chat gpt OpenAI, any of these new large language models, and then to
Mhm.
be able to then have very fine-tuned snippets of personalized content for a marketing email, for a LinkedIn message, for
Yeah.
a outbound sales calling script for an SDR, on and on. So and then it's all getting reassembled back into different tools for the actual delivery of the last mile, right? So you're pushing it
Mhm.
into a tool that can do the email delivery or the LinkedIn message delivery or the sales, voicemail drop. Um, so I think maybe hopefully that answers the question of one of the folks who actually asked this question as we were doing this webinar here. Now, the one other thing before we wrap, I did want to ask you was um, what are some of the best ways that you've seen, you've experienced, uh, creating hyper targeted, uh, even ABM programs with limited resources?
Yeah, I like that question because oftentimes, like I said, resources are limited and there's a lot to do. So, account-based strategy is so much like a partnership with the sales team. So I would start with identifying maybe the top 10, 15 accounts, like which are the highest value accounts that sales would like to uh, you know to to gain. And they could be around maybe a vertical market, right? A geo or a shared pain point, any of those. Use the existing data, and obviously, sales is interacting with those prospects, right? So use those existing data from them, the account intelligence they have, to know exactly what their pain points are, right? What the goals are, what some of the challenges are that set of accounts are facing. And then start with creating, use some marketing channels that don't need a ton of investment, like personalized emails or creating a landing page, which, yes, that does require some resources. But start small and send out those messages, make maybe a webinar program, right, for those accounts. And then my biggest message here, I think, is focus on quality over quantity, right? Start small, experiment, see what's working, and then iterate from there.
Yeah, sounds good. And I guess the what I think I know one of the other questions we had formulated, Pratibha, for us to discuss was uh, maybe you can cover this next, which is intent data platforms.
Mm.
What have you seen as some of the biggest challenges in getting them in place, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah. So, we talked about this maybe a little bit in our earlier conversation. Intent data platforms are, I think, the biggest thing again to start is like what intent signals are the most relevant to your business, right? Because there's so much data, it's really data overload, right? So start with maybe a handful of those intent signals, test them out, see if they're the right ones for your business. Make sure that whatever intent data platform you're using really integrates with your other marketing stack, right? Whether it's your CRM, your marketing automation platform, and so on. And make sure to bring in that marketing ops leader, right, into those conversations early on. So typically, when I'm looking at a new technology, once I know that, okay, I have shortlisted maybe two vendors, I bring in the marketing ops leader. Sometimes they're sitting on my team, sometimes they're outside of my team, but I want to make sure that they understand and can ask all the questions to make sure the integration will be seamless. And the third piece is when we do have that platform, to provide the training to the users and make sure that everybody understands like what are the use cases, how do we use it, when do we use it, what are our goals, right? So that everybody is on the same page. Because if the technology isn't adopted, we know that when it comes renewal time, we actually won't be able to justify the renewal. But even more, right, we actually didn't take advantage of all of that intent data that we could have and use that in the marketing, messaging and the campaigns and so on.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pratibha. Now, the one other question that I wanted to cover before we wrap is around how do you balance automation with maintaining human touch when it comes to personalized outreach?
Yeah, that's a really valid, really relevant question. I would say start out with segmenting your audience, right? We talked about this throughout the session today. Make sure you segment your audience into meaningful groups, right? Which could be based on certain firmographic criteria or maybe certain behaviors or where they are in their life cycle stage and so on. And then tailor the content for each segment to make sure it is personal, it's conversational, right? It doesn't sound robotic. Because if you simply just use an AI tool and use the output directly, it may not sound like a person's written it because they haven't, right? So what's really important is also to make sure that there is some human review, right? To make sure it actually resonates with your brand voice and tone and has the right context. Um, it's also good to actually layer in some uh, human intervention, right? And what I mean by that is for some of those high valued accounts, maybe introduce or send some custom, written emails or send some LinkedIn messages. So it's not just, a like a schedule of sequenced emails that are going out. And then again, at the end of the day, I think I've said this a couple of times, is test and iterate, right? Measure the responses, look at if they're responding better to one type of message versus another, and then basically adjust your messaging and use what's resonating with your audience. There isn't like a perfect answer, but yeah, human intervention, human oversight is really, really critical.
All right. So that pretty much sums it up. So I'm going to share my screen one final time, and we should let people know, Pratibha, how to get a hold of us. So um,
Yeah.
let me put up a quick screen here. If you want to let people know, how they can reach you to have, further conversation with you.
Absolutely. And, I'd like to summarize by saying, Money, that all of these trends that I've talked about signal a shift from tactical execution
Hmm.
to a really strategic orchestration that's using the technology, using the data and creativity, right, in reshaping how demand gen leaders can actually drive revenue growth for their company. So that's why, as I said at the start of the conversation, I'm super excited with all these trends that we're seeing with the data, with technology, and how it can actually help, deliver results for demand gen leaders.
All right, so that's it, folks. So that is the kickoff of our new webinar series for 2025 with Pratibha Jain. We talked about the top five demand generation trends for 2025, and that's it. Thank you. Bye for
Thanks for
now.
having me, Mani.
Have a good one. Bye bye.